Charlie Brown, now Charlie Brown.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a new foe today. That is the carburetor. But before we get into that, I want absolute clarity on what was going on with our ignition system, why we had no spark / very weak spark. It is an ignition system full of voodoo. I traced it down to the ICM, and that was about where my accuracy ended. I thought the ICM was bad, but it turns out the ICM has 3 little doodabbers, E, B, and I had the wires crossed.
Sometimes we make a mistake.
So I just need to double check everything because you have an intake side set of spark plugs and an exhaust set of spark plugs. So, for crying out loud. If you're confused, well, so the hell am I. What's confusing is the exhaust is the interior ring and the intake is the exterior ring. So in is X, X is in. It's just mind-boggling.
Well, that's how it works.
All right, despite all the ways that I confused myself, I still had it right. But if you're struggling or only have one coil firing, make sure your connections on your ICM are correct. So let's get this back together and see if it'll bark off, for crying out loud. So I remarked the balancer with white paint on the timing mark so I can see it better. And I can only get it to run in this one sweet spot, and it looks way retarded. So we're gonna go set it to top dead center, look where our rotor is, just try to piece together the bits and bobs and make sure that we are actually correct. Double check our firing order, just absolutely everything. There's a billion spark plugs. None of this makes any sense to me. It's all voodoo and unicorn magic. All right, that's the compression stroke for sure. So you can just jam your old finger in the spark plug hole, turn it over slowly. You'll definitely feel the air coming out, which is great because we have compression in cylinder number 1, which is good news. Now I lined up my timing marks on my balancer there with my timing tab. Gonna just assume that timing tab is right. I don't really know, but I'm going off of this mark here. So that is indeed the 5-degree mark. So that's lined up in theory, factory style, how it should be. Intake side number 1 is how you time it. This orange guy right here is intake side number 1. So when we pull this cap off, we're expecting the rotor to be back here. And it kind of is. So that's number 1. It's kind of like right there. So that seems way off. It's in the right ballpark, but technically you'd think it wants to be right there. And that was many degrees of rotation. So now if we put our cap back on, there's our number 1 mark. You can see it going down. There's the rotor. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. So that's about the max, which is what's weird because that's where we had it when it ran the first time. Then I had to retard it a bunch to get it to work this last time. All right, this is where we've gotten. I've taken everything apart and I've cleaned it all up. I don't know if the aftermarket caps have this, but the original caps are marked. So I'm gonna line up the coils that are marked with a circle and a square. Squares are intake side, circles are exhaust side. Squares on the outside, starting with, it's labeled I1, and then counterclockwise, it's I1, 3, 4, 2. I'll do the exhaust side the same way. Just good gravy. All right, gang, I got it back together. Cross your fingers, wish me luck, because boy, howdy, has this thing been fighting me. Nope. Also not sure what's going on. Like, I'm not getting any light until it fires up. Not getting anything. Did I murder the starter? Sounds terrible. Did I murder the battery? Don't know. Now what? man. Try this one more time. Oh no. Starter sounds awful. Did I already blow it up? You hear that? All right, that went from working to sounding like metal grinding, and it smells like electrical fire. Guys, is this thing cursed? All right, so I got my Top Don V2200 Plus. It's a jump pack, but I love this thing because it has all manner of battery health tests. Before I snag that starter out, which I'm about to do, because I already know the answer here, we're gonna go ahead and test the battery real quick. All right, this is telling me the state of charge is 100%, health of batteries 100%, 684 cold cranking amps. Go one more time with the button-y magoo. Nothing. All right, let's pull the brand new starter out. It's my favorite. So this brand new starter smells a lot like ozone. I'm gonna take it back to the O'Reillys. I really hope they have one. I can't remember if they ordered it for me or not. Well, she's done. So my pals, the O'Reillys, have another one of those things on order for me now. Should be here in an hour and a half. I think I'm gonna go see the hamburger man and calm my nerves because boy howdy. Well, most of a Saturday later, our new starter is in. When Puddin and Mortsky do this stuff, it just goes right together. But I think that's running when parked. Like, that's a joke most of the time. But boy howdy, that is the greatest advantage you'll ever find, I think. It's also turning way faster than the last starter ever did, so maybe we had a dud anyway. Like, that thing was cooking. In fact, cooking so much, I wonder if it's enough to show us on timing light where we actually are. Ignition engaged. What the fuck? What was that? What is that sound? So I have no idea what that horrible sound was while we were turning it over, so we're gonna go back and do what we were doing before, which is turn it over by hand. That sound is still the fan hitting the wrench. So I don't know what that is. I don't even really know where it's coming from, but there's no inspection plate on this vehicle, so I can't see in to the flywheel at all from anywhere. So I've turned it over by hand a few times. There's no interference seemingly in the engine itself, which makes me wonder if there's a flywheel bolt loose or something. Clutch bolt. That sounds very metallic and very clangety and very bad. I don't want to try it again, but I don't know what else to do. I don't know. We're gonna assume it's okay, right? Is it not? Okay, wait. So is it not doing it while... It sounds like the starter. Anyway, I have this bad feeling. I'm gonna try one more time with the ignition on, and if that does something weird, I'm going to assume the timing is still way off, because I don't know what else to do. I was trying to get it to turn over enough so that I could see the timing. At this point, I've done everything I can visually. We've set number 1. We've reset the firing order. I got one little glimpse. I just got to think about it because it's super advanced, like super 30, 40 degrees advanced. So what does that mean? Use our brains. And that means we need to retard it. And to retard it, we need to rotate it this way. Logically, something's not logicking out, but whatever, we can figure it out. That should be way closer. Not getting the spark I want to get. I got one spark, it looked close. Here we go. Or no, too retarded. It's on this side of the line now. I've got no starter again. What is happening here? New starter's back out. Guys, I'm at a loss here. I'll turn everything over. I can kind of see the flywheel from here. I don't see anything inherently wrong. This went ka-clang again. So I pulled it out, but I don't see anything that... There don't have any broken teeth here. And where it stopped, flywheel's fine. It's just rusty. So I feel like if there were broken teeth, we'd see them real quick because they'd be the only shiny metal in there. Remember, this is what we do for fun. It's fun. This is fun. Good gracious. So the starter's been out. It's back in again. I was cringing because I did not think that was going to work. What I can't tell is if that clanging is related to the timing. Oh, jeez. This thing's killing me, gang. So just for my own sanity and like my nerves being shot, I have one coil and one plug wire hooked up, and that's it. Everything else is just disconnected for now. I'm gonna turn on the ignition. I'm gonna start seeing if we can get this timing close, because logically, the way that I've been trying to zero it in at 5 degrees is just not, the reactions I'm getting are not what I feel like they should be. So here's what we're gonna do, and maybe this should help. I don't know, I just don't know. But I'm not getting a spark on number one. I don't know why not. Alright, so in theory this coil should arc all over the place. Coil's working. Alright. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna pull the plug. I'm not getting a spark as it's turning over like this, and it's killing me. Alright, number one plug is now sitting on the head. I want to see if that sparks and if this flashes, because right now I'm not getting a flash. That's not sparking. Why? The intake coil was clearly firing. It arced all over the place. Let me just swap this plug wire, see what happens. Alright, that's firing. Crying out loud, let's see if we can get a timing light on this thing and see if we're in the ballpark. Guys, this Saturday is almost done and we're nowhere. Nowhere. Please work. I mean, it's sparking. I'm not getting a signal. I don't have much of a choice. I'm just going to put it back together, see if we can get it to bark off for a minute. I'll have to see the timing. Oh, God. This is... For standard old stuff, like trying to set initial timing and stuff like that, this thing by far has proven the most difficult vehicle I've ever worked on. It's fought me harder than anything I've ever been around. Never in all my days. Would you just work? I think I've backed off the timing, retarded it as far as I can to see what we get. Happier. Oh, it's 38 degrees in here. This H-calorie diesel heater is the only thing keeping me alive. Well, that and the support of you fine people, because I am sick of this truck, because it only fires off when the distributor is in one position. That position happens to coincide with when I have the number one cylinder top dead center, the timing lights marked at 5 degrees, the rotor lines up with the #1 spark plug at the center, and that's essentially where we want to be on the distributor. I've adjusted it 1,000 ways. The only part that confuses me is somehow the timing mark when I see it on the timing light is like advanced enough that it's under the water pump. So whatever that is, feels almost like advanced. It's like 20 to 40 degrees more advanced than it should be. I'm gonna assume that's the issue with the timing light. Also, the timing light's working inconsistently, so it's rotting my brain. That's a lot of gibberish to recenter myself to where I was last time I left this, because I've been working on this thing in like 4-hour spurts and not getting anywhere, walking away and scratching my head wondering what's going wrong, because I've never had this much trouble on a car. What I do know at this point though is it gets fuel. When it gets fuel straight down the yap, it runs until it runs out of fuel. But that tells me the carburetor is not supplying it with fuel. We did get the fuel pump working, it's getting fuel to the carburetor. It has both electronic and vacuum valves that are geared toward emissions changes, altitude. This is the most complicated carburetor I've ever run across, and that includes the YJ computer controlled carburetor. So I'm gonna try a cheap trick first for a clean out, see if we get anywhere, and then when we fail at that, we'll pull it off. I was doing some research, and now with the cover off the bowl, I think I can spray through some of the passages, which would make sense because the fuel needs to go through the bowl into those passages. And you know, I'm an Edelbrock guy, so usually you got to take the top off to get into both bowls, and then you got to spray through everything. But this maybe will allow me a little bit of a cheat. I don't know. We're gonna find out. If I can get through this passage, this passage, this passage, this one, and maybe the main one down there, and just spray out the schmutz. All right, I gave it a liquid rebuild. Basically pulled out what I could pull out from the top, sprayed a bunch of liquid down it, carb cleaner, brake clean, whatever I had, and hopefully cleared the passages out. And just like that, the solenoid, the anti-dieseling solenoid now is fried. I would assume that this wiring connection had it when I took it out. See if we can keep it running for a minute. I mean, the trick is here, there's 600 locations for a vacuum leak. And what we're doing is adding a ton of fuel, and by adding a ton of fuel, it runs. But when we don't have a ton of fuel, it doesn't. So it makes it feel like we have to create a very rich condition so that it'll run, and that's because it's getting too much air constantly. And I don't have a clue how to sort that out really unless it's running, because I don't have a way to smoke test it, which is an option where you pump smoke into it and then see where it comes out. But whatever this tube is that runs over to the exhaust goes into the manifold. This goes into the manifold. This. Brake booster runs to a T runs to the manifold itself. Like, I mean, there is a lot of vacuum hooked up here. I don't know what to do. I'd like to get it to run long enough to check the timing again, just to see what we can see here. It's still looking crazy advanced, but it's the only place that it runs, so I just don't know what to make of that, because every time I set it to top dead center, the rotor's in the right place, timing marks are lined up. Just moved it like 3 degrees. Just it's this one sweet spot where it'll run. It's better. There's plenty of fuel in the carburetor, I can see that much. I'm gonna have to call this sooner than later. The last thing I want is a carburetor I don't understand in a million pieces on the workbench. If I could even get it into a million pieces on this workbench. But I'm kind of stuck at this point. I don't know what to make of anything really. I've checked the timing 100 times and we keep lining up with our timing marks on our rotor and everything in the right position. I guess I could have a cap that's a little faulty or a timing light that's a little faulty. Fortunately, I can't get a cap locally, so I guess I could order one of those. But with the carburetor, I've already broken the anti-dieseling solenoid, so that's not good. It also has a bunch of provisions for slowing down the idle to save emissions. It's got altitude adjustment provisions built in. Some stuff that was probably really neat when it was new. So the question I have is, do we pull this off and give it the full rebuild, order the solenoid and parts and all that other stuff, or do we peel off the 400 bucks for a Weber carburetor? A, I'm learning as I go, but B, a lot of the stuff that was on here wasn't right. Bent valves, timing chain off, you know, and then in me disassembling and putting things back on, I've already broken all kinds of stuff. What do you think? Are you guys enjoying the video series? Do I stick with it? Do we move on to something else? Because boy howdy, I'm getting tired of this. You get frustrated enough, you'll feel that way about anything. And it's just money. That stuff grows on trees, right? Put your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. I really appreciate the support. If you know something I don't know, let me know. If you think I'm an idiot, let me know. If you think this thing just needs a carb and we should be good to go, let me know, because I'm a little lost right now, but that's okay. I've been a little lost before. Anyway, good luck on your projects out there, and we will see you next time on Between the Sharks. I'm coming for you.